You thought her smile meant something, that the way she laughed at your joke, leaned in when you spoke, touched your arm like it mattered, was proof you were finally enough, that you were seen, that you mattered. And you clung to that moment like oxygen, not because you're naive, but because no one ever warned you how desperate the craving truly is. The craving to be validated, not by the world, but by her. The woman who, in your mind, doesn't just admire you, she defines you. Because somewhere along the line, in your childhood, in your culture, in the songs, the scriptures, the stories, you were programmed to believe that being chosen by a woman is the final stamp of your manhood, that her approval makes you real, that her love redeems the parts of you you're too afraid to face alone. But what if that belief isn't love? What if it's not romantic at all? What if it's a lie wrapped in centuries of philosophical camouflage? And what if one man, a cold, relentless mind, and saw through it long before you ever felt the ache? What if Immanuel Kant, the man you were told spoke only of reason and duty, quietly revealed a truth you were never meant to hear? A truth so raw, so unsettling, that every instinct in you wants to click away before it sinks in. Because what Kant uncovered wasn't just about women. It was about you. About the part of you that needs her validation more than your own self-respect. And the price you silently pay for it every time you let her gaze define your worth. Kant didn't hate women. He didn't degrade them with rage. He measured them. Not with affection, not with sentiment, but with logic. And what did he see? He saw beauty, not intelligence. He saw form, not reason. Kant believed women were not meant for philosophy, not because they were incapable, but because nature, he said, did not design them for it. That's the word he used, design. As if femininity was architecture, and thought was a masculine structure she was never meant to inhabit. He wrote that women should be beautiful, that the pursuit of knowledge would rob her of grace, that a scholarly woman was a contradiction. And before you dismiss him as outdated, ask yourself, why do you still crave her admiration more than her understanding? Why does her attention feel like redemption and her rejection like erasure? Maybe it's because deep down, you don't want her to be your equal. You want her to be your mirror. You want her to reflect your value, not question it. And Kant, for all his rigidity, saw this imbalance not as injustice, but as nature. He believed that women guide morality not by principle, but by charm. That they lead men to virtue not by argument, but by affection. She does not convince, she compels. Her goodness is not in her reasoning, it's in her presence. She becomes the reason you strive to be better, not because she understands your ethic, but because you want to be worthy in her eyes. Her gaze becomes your moral compass, and when you follow it, you think you're in love. But maybe you're just trying to be enough. And if you pause here, if you let that truth sink into your bones, you'll feel it. The hollowness of every compliment you worked for, every smile you earned. Because if she's not admiring who you are, but who you perform to be, then what are you really building? A relationship or a mask? Kant didn't say this to hurt you, he said it to reveal you. He believed men act from duty, women act from feeling. That morality for her is not a principle, it's a posture, a way of being that persuades without logic. And you've been mistaking that persuasion for love. Her kindness, strategy, her silence, observation, her validation, power. Not power through domination, power through direction. She doesn't need to lead you. She just needs you to need her approval. And once you do, once you associate her attention with your worth, the leash is invisible. She won't pull it. You'll hold it yourself. I used to think I was choosing her, that every time I opened up, every time I softened, every time I adjusted who I was to make her smile, I believed I was in control, that I was giving. But now I see it. I wasn't choosing, I was submitting. Not with chains, with need. Kant saw that need. He wrote that men are governed by principles, by universals, by abstract duty. But women, he said, are governed by the particular, by what pleases in the moment. That they don't navigate life through abstract moral laws, but through taste, through emotion, through the immediate. And maybe that's why her approval feels so intoxicating, because it isn't rational. It isn't earned through argument. It's instinctual. And when she gives it to you, a look, a laugh, a gentle nod, it feels like a gift from God. But it isn't. It's feedback. He didn't say it with cruelty, he said it with precision. He believed that women were not meant to be moral agents, that they shouldn't study ethics because they already embodied it, that their virtue wasn't in understanding what is right, but in being the image of it, a moral symbol, an emotional guide. And maybe that's the trap, because when someone is made into a symbol, they become untouchable. You don't question a symbol, you worship it. And that's what we've done. We've mistaken her kindness for character, her attention for wisdom, her presence for permission. We built our worth on her gaze, not because she demanded it, but because we never learned how to face ourselves without it. And it shows. Every time you twist yourself to keep her interested, every time you suppress your anger to seem more understanding, every time you buy, build, or bleed to earn her affection, you're not being strong. You're being conditioned by myth, by tradition, by a philosophy that told you she is your moral guide, but never your moral peer. Kant said that a woman should not be educated in the same way as a man, that her education should be of manners, not of thought, of elegance, not of ethics, because the moment she begins to think like you, she becomes less beautiful, less desirable, and maybe that's what still haunts us, that we don't want women to know too much, because if they truly saw what we are, not the version we sell, but the chaos beneath, maybe they wouldn't want us at all. So we play a game. We become the version that earns her smile, and in that performance we lose the raw. We lose the parts of ourselves that don't fit the frame she was taught to admire, and slowly we begin to shrink, not because she asked us to, but because the reflection she gives back becomes addictive, and we chase it, over and over again. Her praise becomes our pulse, her approval our compass, not because we're weak, but because we've never been taught that our worth doesn't need her eyes to exist. Kant didn't think men and women should be equal in purpose. He believed in harmony, but not symmetry. That man is the reasoner, woman the reliever. And maybe that's the tension we're still caught in. A world that tells us to build empires while secretly needing a woman's nod to feel real. It's a quiet war inside. The part of you that wants to rise, and the part of you that wants to be chosen. You pretend you're strong, but you wait for her text like it's oxygen. You pretend you're focused, but one compliment from her and your entire day reorients, and you think this is love. But love doesn't beg to be seen. Love doesn't collapse when she turns her gaze elsewhere. This is something else. This is dependency masquerading as devotion, and Kant saw it before you were born. He saw that men would stake their identities on being desirable in her eyes. He believed women lacked autonomy of reason, not as an insult, but as a reflection of nature's different intentions. That their intelligence was emotional, not logical. That they could guide through feeling, not through argument. And we've taken that and twisted it into a romantic fantasy. We say, she gets me, she understands me. But what if she's just good at sensing what makes you feel validated and using it? You've mistaken validation for vision. Her eyes don't see your soul. They scan your posture, your tone, your silence, your hunger. And when she finds the place where you're starving, she feeds it. Just enough. Just enough to keep you hoping. Because she doesn't have to dominate. She only has to remain the source. And if you believe she holds the key to your manhood, then every time she smiles, you feel worthy. And every time she withdraws, you fall. That's not love. That's leverage. That's you handing over the weight of your existence to someone who never asked to carry it. And the irony? She may not even know, because she's playing her role too. The role Kant etched into the architecture of Western thought, that a woman's place is not to assert, but to reflect, not to challenge, but to charm, not to lead, but to inspire the man who does. So now you're both acting. You, the man trying to be enough. Her, the woman shaping herself into what you expect, and neither of you are real anymore. You've been replaced by projections, masks built on centuries of philosophical roles, And here's what makes it more tragic. She craves realness too, but she's been trained by society, by biology, by survival, to secure her place through influence, not force, through intuition, not confrontation, through approval, not truth. So she gives you what you want to feel, not always out of manipulation, but out of habit, out of design. And you drink it like water in a desert. You don't ask if it's real. You're too thirsty. You were taught to conquer the world, but never to sit still in your own skin, never to stand alone, unwatched, unpraised, and still feel like a man. And now you're here, with all your strength, all your success, all your so-called independence, and you're still a prisoner to her smile, still a servant to her softness, still performing, still waiting, still bending yourself to fit a mold she didn't even make. It was handed to her, just like yours was handed to you. And in that dance of illusion, you've mistaken chemistry for connection, performance for partnership. You want to be loved, but you've never asked what you become when that love disappears. You say she changed. Maybe. Or maybe you never knew her. Maybe you only knew the reflection of yourself you were desperate to see in her eyes. And now she's gone. Or worse, she's still here, but her gaze no longer lifts you. Her silence, once mysterious, now feels like absence. Her affection, once sweet, now calculated. And you don't know who you are without it, because for too long you built your identity in the shape of her approval. And when that approval fades, or worse, shifts to someone else, you don't just lose her. You lose the version of yourself that only existed in her eyes. But Kant warned us. He said that when we place our worth in beauty, in charm, in emotional resonance rather than in reason, we become slaves to the external. That true autonomy is not in being admired, but in being rational, in being self-governed. And you've confused being admired for being valuable. Kant believed that men must act from duty, not desire, that we are free only when we act from principles, not passions. And maybe that's the solution. Maybe that's where we start, by letting go of the need to be liked by her and committing to being honest with ourselves. Because the woman you're chasing, the one whose affection feels like absolution, may not even exist. She's a dream, a projection, a reflection of your unhealed ache to be seen without having to face yourself. And when she withdraws, you don't just feel rejected, you feel erased. Not because she's cruel, but because you outsourced your wholeness. You gave her the responsibility to complete a man you never became on your own. But this is not where it ends. This is where you rise, not against her, but within yourself. You stop chasing her smile like it's a prize and start building a self that doesn't vanish when no one is watching. You stop asking, what does she see in me? And start asking, what do I see when I look in the mirror? You stop performing masculinity for validation and start living it from principle. That's the Kantian turn. From dependence to duty, from emotional slavery to sovereign clarity. She is not your judge. She is not your redeemer. She is not your mirror. She is a person, a complex, beautiful, flawed, powerful person. And so are you. And the moment you stop needing her validation to feel like a man, that's the moment you finally become one. Because she will test it. She will sense the shift. When you no longer flinch for her approval, she'll feel it. And she might walk away. Or she might draw closer. Not to the performance, but to the presence. To the man who is not hungry for her gaze, but who sees her clearly. Beyond the myth. Beyond the mirror. That's not control, that's connection. And it's rare. And it's real. But it only begins when the need to be validated dies. So let it die. Let the myth collapse. Let the story that told you her love will make you whole burn at your feet and stand, not above her, not against her, but beside her, as someone no longer ruled by her reaction, but by your own reason. Because only a man who knows who he is can truly see her as she is, not an object of beauty, not a gatekeeper of worth, not a reward for being good, just a woman. And in that seeing, in that clarity, maybe finally something true can begin. If this shattered an illusion or woke something inside you, don't keep it to yourself. Like the video, share it with someone who's chasing the same ghost. Subscribe for more raw, unfiltered truths they won't teach you anywhere else. And if you want to support this message, the channel link is in the description. Every contribution keeps the truth alive.